And I am. Hello, welcome to 420 Live. I'm your host, Jeff Kravitz. It is a beautiful Wednesday, hump day. I just love the new logo. And this is all part, sorry, I meant to take that out. This is all part of our phase 2 here at 420 Live with Jeff Kravitz. Today we launch with the Osiris Media Network family, Osiris Pod. We are happy and proud to be part of the Osiris family in combination with Jam Bass, working with some of my finest friends and people and humans that I've known for many, many years. And today I'm just tweaking it out here and dialing it in. I want to make sure that now we're a big show, a really big show coming to you live. And you can see today I am representing, this sweater was from my father, Pinky Kravitz's world famous sweater collection. My dad was an incredible dresser and he could really turn it on. And one of the things he did was wear these crazy Coogee sweaters. I actually found a place in downtown LA in the fashion district, the Coogee warehouse, or, their store, and they would have their, samples up there. So Pinky would take them up there and he'd buy these sweaters, and it made his day because he just loved a good discount, Pinky. And and that was like, oh, sample sale. And he would go in there and just clean them out. And when Pinky passed away, one of the things we did at his funeral was dress the kids up in his sweaters. And they all got up there and gave their little speech wearing his sweaters. And the next day, when I went down to the newsstand in the press to pull out the paper, the page was folded, and above the fold was the pictures of the 4 kids at the podium giving his eulogy in his sweaters. And you could hear in my voice that it just chokes. I, of course, didn't want to go into the sad funeral story to start my show, but I miss my dad, and I think we all miss the people that put us on the earth and molded us. And a lot of what I'm doing now and today is based on my dad and what he did in his life. So as I compose myself and get ready, I have to take this off because it's so hot in here. So not only am I squirting water out my eyes, but my whole body's kind of wet. So I'm going to take off the Pinky sweater. But when I finally figure out how to keep it totally cold in here and I can wear it in an ice box, I'll wear it. But thanks, Dad. What can I say? Well, I really didn't, I don't really think about where I'm going when I start the show. And I just kind of follow my muse. And that went down a really deep hole. And it just kind of brings out my dad was the kind of guy that would step into action. Whenever there was a disaster, snowstorm, rainstorm, the boardwalk blew up, hurricane, Pinky would be out of the house. So the whole house would be blowing down, the lights would be out, candles would be up, we'd be in there with Mom, and Dad would be out on the boardwalk, go driving through 3 feet of water to go report and just give the people a rundown at home, let them know what was happening in their city. So he was like a first responder. He would go out, there was a fire, he would come home, his clothes would stink of smoke. He was on the scene, and it was really interesting as a kid for your dad not to be there when the shit was hitting the fan, but then you would hear him on the air, and he was comforting the citizens and letting them know what was going on and what they were doing. So in true Kravitz fashion, I've stepped to the plate with this show, this adventure, this distraction, and it's been a total learning experience for me. I've totally gotten into places I really didn't want to go. It wasn't really something that I was like, okay, this is going to be my life. I'm going to be a talk show host. But you know what? I kind of liked it. And I kind of like being able to reach out to my friends and connect. And it grows my heart to be able to come every day and talk to you guys. So I started, circling my wagons and talking to my friends and figuring out how to take this to the next step. And one of the things and people I talked to was Tom Marshall. Tom and I have been friends now for well over a decade. I've been seeing Phish for 25 years, 26 years now. It's my total guilty pleasure. My mom's like, you haven't seen enough Phish shows? So it gets under everybody's skin. My wife, same thing. But no, I haven't. And it's more about the people, who you meet, what happens to you at the shows, as much as it is about the music and the band and what they're doing on stage. It's just as important what happened off stage. And some of the relationships I've built around this band and around the people are some of my most important relationships in my life. And, when I reached out, Tom Marshall has always been an inspiration. He's got this podcast and, he works with Trey, and we all love Trey. We all love the band. He's friends since childhood. I mean, the mystery and the mystique behind that band is just so steeped and started off in so early in everybody's lives that are involved in the songwriting process and in the process of being Phish, that it's been an inspiration. So I reached out to Tom to be on the show, and Tom was reticent. He was like, Kravitz live really isn't my thing. And I'm like, yeah, but it's my thing. So let me take you for a little ride. So we talked, and what I really wanted from Tom was advice on how to take this to the next level. Unfortunately, he has started this company with RJ, and the two of them have welcomed me with open arms, and I'm going to welcome my friend Tom Marshall to my show. There you go, Tom. I'm crying on the first show. That's great.
Hey, Jeff, let's start by saying I'm incredibly honored that the show that I'm on with you started talking about your dad. I miss my dad too. 2012, we lost him, and he would be 90 this month on the 29th. Wow. So happy birthday, Dad. And they're both watching us. Maybe they're together. That'd be kind of cool.
It's interesting. I always felt that our fathers put us on this planet to carry on in their spirit. It's something about my kids that I could see they have the Kravitz spirit in them. And I'm sure you see the same thing with your children too, that you see the Marshall family line being carried on.
No question. The other thing I'm honored about, and you touched on this, is that you chose to put your incredible show on Osiris. And you have an incredible network as it is by yourself, but everything works better as a team. And we're really humbled and proud to be your team, Jeff. And I really want to take this to not just national. I kind of want people like in Nepal to be watching this in a year or something.
Well, hopefully all those UFOs are watching it too. All those aliens buzzing around our atmosphere.
Yeah. UFOs and Perth, Australia. Hello, Perth. I guess they wave like this for some reason in Perth, Australia. I don't know why. But let's not derail. I have a history of derailing interviews. So
no, it's fine. It's part of the thing is trying, the conversation and the flow. So you're welcome to take me out of my game anytime you want. I'm hard to face, Tom. So
I derailed with John Barber, the Disco Biscuits guitarist.
Oh, you derailed John?
Yeah, he invited me kindly on his podcast and immediately started asking me about kale spores. And I was like, what the? I thought he was joking with me, or we were kind of both joking with the audience. So I played along, and he said, how are you doing with your kale spore research? And I said, we've never had a better year. This was an incredible year. and we kept going, and it got down. He said, so you're researching them at the microscopic level for what purpose? And I kept answering him, and he kept, so it turned out he was believing what the bullshit that I was saying, but I thought he was bullshitting me, and we were both bullshitting the audience. Anyway, it went into a complete black hole, but we managed to dig ourselves out. So I'm not going to do that today.
So to talk a little bit about podcasting and how you got into that, because that's something that was totally different than your normal life. You used to have like a normal job too, right? Besides the songwriting.
I did. Yeah. I was a programmer for a long time. That ended in 2005. And sometime, actually, pretend that the 10 years between 2005 and 2015, something productive happened. At 2015, I was listening a lot to something called Analyze Phish. It's a podcast with Scott Aukerman and Harris Whittles. And Harris Whittles, of course, he was a writer and sometimes actor in Parks and Recreation and some other amazing TV shows. And he's a friend of Sarah Silverman and all that stuff. Unfortunately, we lost him. And when he died, the show ended, Analyze Phish, but I loved it, and it's funny as hell. And I think they only did 10 podcasts total. And when it ended, I was sort of devastated. And to fill the hole, I decided, with the help of a friend of mine who might be watching, Mark Dowd, I was living in Atlanta at the time, and he turned me on to podcasts. He turned me on to that one and a bunch of others. And he said, you could just do a Phish podcast. So that's how it started. Then fast forward a little bit, I came back to this area. At the Man Music Center, I met RJB, who was a guy who had, with 4 other friends, the Helping Friendly podcast, which is another successful Phish podcast. And I told him I'm thinking of starting a podcast. And rather than saying, no, please don't, Tom Marshall's starting a podcast, might infringe on his podcast audience, he said, how can I help? And so since then, we've been fast friends, and we co-formed Osiris together.
What was the biggest revelation you had in your podcast career as your talent as a podcaster?
I think it's constantly changing, reassessing my ability and my focus on becoming a better interviewer. Really, it's when I hear some people making the mistakes that I made early on, and you seem to be more natural and probably aren't falling into some of the pitfalls that I fell into. But it has to do with not listening to the answer that you provoked. You ask a question, you should listen to the answer. Instead, I was sort of like rushing ahead, looking at the sheet of paper in front of me, like, well, now I have to ask this. Now I have to ask this. Now I have to ask this. And it would always sort of artificially cut off my guest from saying something amazing, because that's where the amazing stuff is, off the paper, Right. Yeah.
Well, and also the thing I find most interesting about the answer is that there's 10 questions in every answer. So that's when you really start getting the nuggets out, when you go into the question, start figuring, okay, what is the thing that that person just said that's going to give me something really revealing further into them. And
what they want to talk about. Yeah, 100%.
Right. Or maybe not what they want to talk about, but what ends up coming. It's like cracking a nut, and picking out the little pieces that you want, the meat, and going for it.
I've interviewed Trey on my podcast, I think 3 times officially now.
Let me ask you one question. How many questions did you ask? Was it 1 question per podcast?
That is exactly what I was going to say. And that is, I had a list of 15 questions, and I got to exactly 1 in each of those cases.
Now that's a guy that can talk.
Precisely. You just wind him up and let him go, and it'll be fine.
Well, he kind of talks like he plays music, which is starts one thing, then all of a sudden that leads to another thing. That he goes back a little bit, then forward, and then back. It's just incredible conversationalist. But he could just sit there and do it by himself.
Precisely. I think his wife Sue calls him the relentless communicator. In other words, she's probably like, at the receiving end of that sometimes when she doesn't want to be. She just wants to read a book or something.
Yeah, well, you know what? When Pinky used to come home from dinner, and if he would start, getting on his soapbox at the table, my mom would say, "Pinky, this ain't your show. Keep that for the air."
Exactly.
Finish what you're eating.
Yeah.
So podcasting is kind of a newer thing. The songwriting, though, has been something you've done since 8, 6, 7. Going back on your history, I'm like, holy crap. Makasupa Policeman, how old? Was that the first song you ever wrote?
Yeah, so that one I wrote with my friend Chris Lariche, and I was probably like in 3rd grade or something. So that was before I knew Trey. And we wrote a bunch of songs. And I don't even know if Chris ever knew that Makasupa Policeman became a Phish song. Maybe he did. He probably did by now. I hope.
What is that? That's just a word you made up, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It was actually Maki Super Policeman, and Trey heard it as Maki Supa, which is fine. I like when Trey reinterprets my stuff anyway. But I think I was just singing it once, and he just took it and turned it into a reggae song. But my sister is 6 years older than I. And she had all these cool dude friends that I looked up to, but I kind of mixed up Joel Gordon and Woody Armstrong and Scott Kaufman. So I called all of them Mackie. I don't know why. And they still call me Mackie to this day.
It's a classic. It doesn't have that many words to it.
No.
And now you go on and look up the word Makasupa, and there's Urban Dictionary translations of it.
I'm very proud of that.
You've created your own language with these lyrics.
Oh yeah, yep.
What's the most interesting lyric that you wrote that somebody butchered and then spit it back to you, and you were like, that's not too bad?
Oh man, that's a tough one to come up with.
What do the fans come up to you and they're like, "Oh yeah, I thought you were saying this word, but it was actually that word," or
that happens like that, but more like an interpretation. So, hey Tom, I finally figured out what Theme from the Bottom's about. It's about a girl, and you're trying to, and I just kind of sit there nodding because I don't ever want to like step on someone's interpretation of the song.
Well, of course, it's like ruining Christmas.
Right, exactly. Even though some of them may be way, way out there, way out there.
What's the best one you ever? Can you think of one that you heard where somebody was like, "Oh yeah, okay, Tom." You're like, "Yeah, that's great. That's right. How did you get in my brain?" You got a lot of people coming up.
I have to come back to that.
Right. Because people come up to you at shows and they're out of their mind and they're just like babbling some shit like you're writing about their life. Like, yes. You know us. Yeah. So third grade, you wrote Makasupa, and then where'd you go from there?
So that was in public school, and then I did 8th grade in public school, and the public schools in Princeton, there was like 6 of them, and we were sort of segregated. However, there were things that we did, and I got to know Trey by sight. He was in Littlebrook, and I was in John Witherspoon. But I would know him by sight. I knew this big, long-haired, redhead dude, but I didn't know he was a drummer and didn't know he was a guitarist until suddenly both our parents sent us to private school, and we both redid 8th grade because we sucked at school, and also private school was ahead of us by 1 year. So we both like stayed back, did 8th grade, and we wound up at Princeton Day School together. And we wound up in a grade that had 100 kids, 50 boys, 50 girls, and it had 6 bands in it. And Trey was a drummer in all the bands, and I was the only keyboard player. And so I could be in whatever band I wanted to be in. The only band I wanted to be in was one with my friend Mark Daubert and Dave Abrahams. Dave Abrahams wound up writing Runaway Jim. Mark Daubert wound up writing The Curtain With. And Mark also became the band's percussionist for a while in the 80s, late 80s. But whenever Trey joined that band, our band name, the trio of us, was called And Back. And we still have like 3 or 4 And Back albums. Whenever Trey joined, we were Bivouac. And that formation, we wrote I Am Hydrogen and some other things that are now Phish songs as well.
And then you guys kind of fell out of touch for a while. And then. Yes.
So Trey went off to Taft. So yeah, he went one way and I went kind of the other. And we had this amazing coincidence. He got kicked out of University of Vermont for doing something I'm not sure. I think everyone.
I hand it to you. You got heart.
Yes.
I told that story to the kids the other day, and they were like, "What?"
Yes. Let's just say that a cadaver and med school was involved. I don't know to what detail that this should be publicized, but you can probably look it up.
See it.
You can probably look it up.
Yes.
Trey got kicked out of University of Vermont for that, and I got kicked out of Carnegie Mellon for not going to class, basically. And we both wound up, our dads said, you have to go to Mercer County Community College. And I was walking out of class and Trey was walking in, and we looked at each other like, Trey? He's like, Tom? And he said, I don't want to go to class. Do you want to go to my dad's house and build a recording studio and record some music? And there's only one answer to that. And then that was it. We recorded Slave, Antelope, Letter to Jimmy Page, something called Log, which became Divided Sky. I played keyboards on it, and we sat around having fun, late night smoking sessions, just so much fun. It was an amazing summer into another semester before he finally went back up to Vermont and really formed Phish in earnest.
And then but you weren't dealing with the first record with Hunt or anything like that.
So some of correct. The next thing that I knew that was the official, I'd heard from him that Phish was doing well, and I was sending him lyrics and stuff. I would send him stories, like a story called Sloth and a poem called McGrupp and the Watchful Hosemasters. And I sent him these things, but hadn't heard really too much about Phish. Suddenly my friend Peter Catoni said, here, check out this Phish album. And I played it. And there were some songs with lyrics like David Bowie UB40 in a 15-minute song, and I'm like, maybe these guys need some lyrics, and that's kind of where I sort of re-engaged. Let's go out to dinner and see a movie for the entire song. It was interspersed with some songs that did have lyrics, like Esther and Fee, which Trey proved himself as quite a capable lyricist. But it was the preponderance of the other ones where there were no real lyrics, really good music. And I thought, maybe I could supply him, because I was like just spilling out lyrics.
You never stopped writing lyrics.
No. I would just spill them out in a way that had no filter. And that's sort of another topic, but some of the early Phish songs were some of those unfiltered things that, had I had a little bit of a filter on it, I would have, massaged them a little bit before they came out and became, chalk dust torture or something.
Well, there's nothing wrong with a good chalk dust.
Well, that's Trey's argument. Mine is like, I think there's some words that could be, if they were tweaked a tiny bit, it would be even better.
Like vasoconstrictor?
No, I'm just thinking like how that cabin has been buffed by the wind a lot, and what is a flagon of rice, that kind of stuff. Whatever.
Yeah, yes. It has some interesting lyrics. It's a confusing song to perform, because you can't remember which verse, which verses go together. I have trouble with it all the time. But yeah, thanks. You're right. Conundrums, it makes it difficult.
Yeah, it's my friend Anthony, who's the other guy I write songs for. I'll hand him a lyric sheet. Trey never says this, by the way. Trey likes when it's full. Anthony will go, "Oh no, another Marshall mouthful," and he has to remember those.
The Marshall mouthful.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's something in the songwriting. I think Hunter did the same thing too. He created some conundrums there for Garcia, where Garcia and Yent didn't know which verse went with which chorus, and all the songs were, performed in a completely different way. Not that it was bad, but it was just not the way it had gone traditionally.
I think a lyricist, like, someone who's a dedicated lyricist to a person like, Hunter was to Jerry, or I am to Trey, are honored when someone takes the time to take your lyrics and massage them in a way that's more appealing to them. People have asked me, are you ever angry when Trey changes your lyrics? Like, Trey will actually take two lyrics and combine them and leave parts out and stuff.
From two different songs, you mean?
Oh yeah. Things that I thought were like a coherent, solid, cohesive poem, and then here's another solid, coherent, cohesive poem, and he'll yank something out and put in it. And in every case, it's a Phish song, right? So, you don't need to know how it got there; it's just there.
So when you hear like something live, has there ever been a point where you've been like, oh, that didn't quite turn out the way I thought it was going to?
No,
man. In a bad way, not in a good way. Like, okay, this isn't going to fly like this. I mean, because there are a lot of songs they throw up there and they don't stick, and then they just fall out of rotation. Because let's face it, there are so many Phish songs. As a fan, trying to get my head around the catalog, most bands you could be like, all right, I'm going to buy all their studio records and I'll know all their songs. No, because then you had to have the thesis. Because if you didn't have Gamehenge, that was a full song cycle of 10 songs that you wouldn't even know if you heard them live, and they got played a lot. So you had to know the thesis, then you had to know all the different cover songs, and you had to know, there was so much to learn, and it wasn't all available on record. And that was the first time in any band that I've ever been a fan of that I came across where you couldn't access parts of their catalog. Because the new record, Sigma Oasis, has 10 songs on it, and they range in age. Some of them are 10 years old. Now, some of my friends said, well, how come Harry Hood and Susie Greenberg never made it to that record? Because they're not on any record either. And I was like, okay, you Phish heads, you know way too much.
That's a great question. I don't know. Yeah, I wasn't in the room for that sorting procedure. I was the beneficiary of I was extremely happy to see how many songs I had a hand in when Sigma Oasis song list came out. I was very, very happy. Obviously, I'd written 9 of the 10 songs, which was amazing. I think that might be my record, no pun intended.
Your record on the record?
Yeah. But to answer your question, what song, like stuff that I wrote that I don't want out there?
You didn't think made the transition?
Well, there's some songs, like it would be Sour Grapes if I looked back, and chose a song like Jennifer Dances and said, yeah, I didn't mean for that song to be out there. But there's other songs like I don't know, like Friday or Amidst the Peals of Laughter or Let Me Lie, maybe, where I think the placement of those songs sometimes is an issue, right? I think sometimes people don't get over it. Like I remember Friday as an encore once, and I think people were unforgiving to the song after that. And amidst the peals of laughter, that came in that wingsuit Halloween. And for that Halloween, I don't know if you were there, but some people were angry.
Yes.
And I like to say it pissed off the right people because I loved it. I love the wingsuit Halloween, but some people needed like Led Zeppelin to fuck their face or something, and they just couldn't deal. So I think that song was targeted. But again, I'm just throwing out a theory. But Jennifer Dances, like a lot of Phish songs, I think Trey and I were enamored by the simple progression and the harmonies. And I think the lyrics kind of just like slipped right past quality control. It went by on the conveyor belt and no one noticed. But if someone had said like,
"Oh no, people noticed."
no, I meant like in the Phish mechanism, like before it actually came out and became a Phish song, like not even Fishman or Page said, if one of them had said to us, "A little less salt in the gravy tonight," are you serious, guys? That might have like been a slap in the face and woken us up. But I don't know. To me, it's part of Phish history, and I don't regret it or anything, or any song. Why would I?
No, of course not. You're there. It's not really your job to pick. Your job's just to provide the lyrics.
Correct.
Do you try to give them any input?
I mean, yeah, as much as I can. Like when I'm with Trey and we're writing at a writing session, definitely. Like anything's on the table. We listen to each other with very open ears and, no insult taken, no matter what is said, kind of thing. It's a very open collaboration. So yeah, if something's not working, there was a version of Sigma Oasis, the song, which Trey came up with first. And I told him, and he said, "Tom, I really love this. It's amazing." And I was listening over and over, and I just couldn't get it. And I said, "Trey, it's light. It's too light. It's an acoustic, and it's kind of droney, and it's not doing anything." The next version, I think he got some fire under him about it. Maybe he didn't necessarily agree with me. I think he liked that version, and it'll be funny to play it to him back to back because I still have that older one. But the next one is the version that we have now, and to me, it totally kicked ass. So I'm glad I said something.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times, do you even have the opportunity, or next time you hear it's on the record?
There have been a couple times where Trey played me a version of something, and the last one I'm thinking of was Joy. On the album Joy, the song Light, and there's this, they do overlapping lyrics. Like at the very end, it's obstacles are stepping stones that guide us to our goals. Fences are filter, purify our souls. But before they're done saying purify our soul, the other guys are saying obstacles are stepping stones. So they're not finished before the other one starts. Trey played me the demo, which had that beautiful overlapping thing. Then he played me the version that Phish recorded in the studio, and it didn't. It came out, they said the phrase, and then the next phrase started. And I'm like, "What happened to that cool overlapping thing?" And he's like, "Oh, shit." And he went back and fixed it. And so I was glad that I was able to fix it in that case as well.
How's that? So your songwriting process, I mean, you guys have been taking trips. I mean, that's been like a thing you've done over the past couple of years. I saw you went up to like the mountains one time, and you went to Atlantic City one time, my hometown. And what's that like? Do you guys just lock yourselves up in a Airbnb and just, wake up, make breakfast, and start?
So it's a little nicer than that. Phish has, as you know, an amazing staff that's like when Phish is off, their touring staff is kind of sitting around. I think Trey might tap a couple of those guys, Ben in particular, to fill up the house, and some of the catering staff to fill up the house with food. And so, and it's not an Airbnb. It's usually like a nice vacation rental by owner or whatever.
Right.
And it wasn't Atlantic City. It was Brigantine.
Oh, Brigantine.
Yeah. And the house, if you were going to buy that house, it would probably be, prohibitively expensive. And
that wasn't the house where Sinatra stayed when he played Atlantic City, was he? All the way to the point.
I don't know.
At the end of the beach, do you remember? It was a big old house.
I don't know the history of the house. I imagine if Sinatra had been there,
there would have been a plaque.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was very inspiring, and that's like the way that Trey and I have gotten used to songwriting sessions. But the thing that's the same every time is, and he told this, so I'm not giving anything away. He told this on Instagram recently, Rubber Jungle. Rubber Jungle is what we call, or what he calls, the studio that comes along. So this guy, really cool guy, Ben, who has been working. Ben Collette has been working with Phish for a long time. He comes and he sets up the studio and he supervises all that and makes sure everything sounds good. So when we walk in, there's a guitar station, there's a bass station, there's a drum station, there's a vocal station, there's a keyboard station, and then there's a recording console that Trey and I are familiar with. And then, it used to be that they would leave and it would just be me and Trey. Lately, we've been realizing the advantage of actually keeping Ben there.
And having him there the whole time.
Yeah, he's absolutely silent. He's almost as if there's no one there.
Right.
And it's incredible. Like, we could talk and be saying salacious things, and every now and then I'll look at him like he had to have heard that and be smiling, and he's not. He's just stoic.
And well, I think he's enhancing the creative process rather than trying to influence it. Right.
Correct. Yep.
And it's very hard to do. I mean,
exactly,
if I chirp it in.
Right. I would be like adding to the joke, but he knows not to.
It's crazy. Now, Trey's been very prolific. His pandemic pivot has been incredibly. So when the new record came out, everybody was like, "What? You're going to 9-year-old songs and you just finished 10 songs in the past 2 weeks? What are you doing?" But I guess they wrote that earlier, and he just had wrote this. This all came up at the last minute, and this was actually planned. The record was planned to come out at this time, correct?
Are you talking about Sigma Oasis or
Sigma,
all the music?
Sigma Oasis, how that was planned to come out at the time it did, or did they?
They even rushed that, so that was unplanned, the release date. But I think the COVID thing happened. We were all quarantined, and they just had the stroke of genius. Let's just release this now when everyone's home and need something, a bit of good news.
Well, not only a stroke of genius, but people like Lady Gaga and all these main acts are holding their music back. Phish released a record and it went to #1, which was, I believe, their first #1. Yeah.
Yeah. When you say #1, it doesn't matter anymore, right? Like, what
right.
Is it #1 on Billboard? I know it made #1 on Apple, but I don't know where #1 is anymore.
Yeah, there's no. I guess there's no more Billboard chart. I guess there is, but the way you count, it's trying to count like COVID cases or something.
Right. Everyone has a different one.
Yeah. It was this many. So
yes, it was #1.
It was #1 with a bullet. So the quarantine songs. How is that creative process? How does it work in these times? Is it all Zoom calls and?
Yes, some of those, the framework of those had been completed, and Trey will complete the song by himself. You can hear my voice on 1 or 2 of those songs, believe it or not, because we had done some work to those songs. But for the most part, it's Trey sitting by himself with lyrics and his Spire, which is his recording device, and his guitar, and then coming up with percussion, from his house, toilet paper or whatever.
Toilet paper and hand sanitizer.
Yeah, and I love how he's changing the set. Like, sometimes he'll string lights, sometimes, and then the cats appear. It's just been amazing, and I've been loving his songs. And again, really excited that I had a surplus of lyrics for him to dig into. And when I say I should say me and my friend Scott Herman. Supplied Trey with a bunch of lyrics. So most of those have been co-written by me and Scott.
So was that stuff you had worked on over the past couple of years or past couple of months you gave him, or is that all pandemic stuff?
Very new. Like I said, a few of the songs, the framework existed just prior to the pandemic. But for the most part, these have been, and those would be like modified and released by Trey. Some of them have just been written outright by Trey. Most of them just outright by Trey by himself.
Lyrics and everything.
No, like I said, he's writing from a sheet of my lyrics.
I got it. So, and he's just doing it by himself.
Yes.
What a process. I mean, the pandemic, the response has been unbelievable. And this is a guy that is not used to being home. I mean, he's on the road constantly. He's always constantly touring, planning something else. I mean, I'm the same way. You got to be out of the house. You always have something to look forward to. You're always figuring out where you're going to go next. It's just been very hard on all the creatives, like all the musicians I talk to. Everybody's trying to figure out what the new paradigm is and how they're going to exist.
Are you getting tired of the Zoom music yet?
It's really hard. I've been doing a thing on Friday night with my friends. We went to New Orleans last year. Greg Lucas and I from Press Hall did a little thing where we compiled a bunch of videos from all the different venues that we'd go to see the night shows in New Orleans. And we had all our friends come in and we went from venue to venue. Hey, let's go to DBA. Let's go to One Eye Jacks. And we went all over town watching music together. And it really made me feel like I was at Jazz Fest in a way. It made me remember what it was like to be there. And I think those kind of experiences are really interesting of what's happening on, because it fires, because we all have the memories, but we've never really accessed them to take us back to those times, for comfort. And when we're bored to death, I mean, sometimes we'll think about a good time, but now we're actually trying to get back into our mindset. What was it like to go to Coachella? What was it like to be at a Phish show? What was it like, trying to remember the smells, the sights, the friends, how it was to hug and dance. And I think that's the hard thing, is to figure out in our new paradigm and how we're going to exist like that. I mean, watching the way the country's opening, it looks like next week they're going to have concerts.
I believe that might happen. I was going to say, and I didn't mean it in a glib fashion when I said, "Are you tired of the the Zoom music?" And I think it was kind of cool how all the musicians stepped up and figured out a cool way, limited by technology, a cool way to collaborate. But the newness of it wore off pretty quick for me. I mean, I even did one. I did Skip the Goodbyes, and Trey played the solo on it, and that was one of those multi-window things. The first two I saw were incredible. One was a high school band. I think their concert, their a cappella concert got canceled. And so they did a version of Over the Rainbow. And it was just it was staggeringly beautiful. And then the next thing I saw was a German Philharmonic Orchestra, I believe, did a Beethoven symphony. And it's just everyone playing their instrument in a little window. And it was heartrending. It was phenomenal. And then suddenly it was like the tidal wave opened and everyone was doing it. And like you, to me now, it's not frustrating that they're doing it. It's frustrating that it is reminding me of what we're missing.
Yeah, and also trying to find the time to watch all these different Zooms and watch these different interviews and shows. And, I'm just adding to the madness with my show. Because come watch me. Yeah, right, okay, Kravitz.
Actually, you're making the decision easy for everybody. Everyone knows just to watch Kravitz.
Yeah, well, yeah, let us pray. Let us pray we can bring enough to the table where people will tune in and participate. We had a little participation here. Let's pull. Josh Katz says, what's it feel like hearing your song first time live? What was the first time that you heard one of your songs on stage by Phish, and what did it feel like?
It was amazing. I don't know if it's exactly the first time, but I remember this one moment in Madison Square Garden. Whenever the first time they played there, was that 93 or 94?
90. Well, 95 was the New Year's, so I think 90.
I think they played before that.
Yeah.
But in any case, it was whenever they were there and played Bouncing Around the Room. And I heard everyone in Madison Square Garden singing, "And I Awoke." And that was the most unbelievable, because I don't think I'd seen Phish in an arena that large. I wasn't like a huge Phish follower up until probably like 96, when I started really like going on the bus with them and seeing as many shows as I could. But prior to that, I was like, two young kids in the house and a job as a programmer. And, I didn't get to really follow Phish like I would now if they were playing.
Yes. Now you're at every show. I'm at every show.
Yes.
We're everywhere we could be. I'm trying to find one comment from I think it was Kelly Baines who said that
Kelly.
Bouncing around the room was about masturbation.
Uh-oh. It is whatever you want it to be, Kelly.
Well, in that vein, I've told a lot of my friends that Water in the Sky was about a certain talent that a certain female had.
Oh, no. I'm not going to say what it really is then, because it will malign my the person that it's about.
Oh, good. Well, I'm sure that wasn't too much of a compliment what I just said either.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
How many have you written a song about somebody and they didn't know, but then they picked, like, you didn't tell them and then they picked it up anyway?
Well, the songs that are about someone in a good way, I eventually tell someone, like my daughter, Pebbles and Marbles. I wrote it about her when she was too young to know that it was about her. But there's some people that are in songs that are mentioned sort of like almost like Taylor Swift revenge style, and I probably haven't told them. They might be in sort of a snarky lyric or something.
Has anybody figured it out?
No.
No.
Simple smiles and good times seem all wrong is about a boss that I had at Educational Testing Service, and that's for you, Dave. And then that different song that was Sample in a Jar. Then of course Buffalo Bill was written about a gentleman also there who now has passed away, so I don't want to say his name. But that was an actual experience that I had when I wasn't supposed to be out with my friends wandering around the Educational Testing Service campus. We were supposed to be behind our desk, and this like very uptight sort of British boss who's like British military guy happened to be outside. And the only thing I could do to break the ice, because he had talked about owls earlier that morning, I asked him, looking for owls. Are you looking for owls? And he walked by like really frowning and glaring at me. So I wrote a nice song for him.
You performed that live with Phish, right?
Oh yeah. I couldn't come up with the date of that.
I want to say Coventry or Limestone maybe. I want to say it was a festival or something big.
You might be right. Yeah, stage appearances, that's like not a big thing for me anymore, is it?
No, not so much.
I started in 95 with Sean.
Oh, wait. Now, Antelope, you wrote the one, there's not many words in Antelope. And you wrote the one line.
Rai Rocco, Marco Escondolas. Yeah.
Right. And that happened in a rehearsal or during a jam?
So Steve and Trey had written that song before. Then in Mercer County, when Trey and I went and recorded the definitive first version of that in Trey's dad's basement in that studio that we had, I was sitting there. I think I had just done the keyboard for Slave to the Traffic Light, which is another Steve Trey song. And the mic was open, and there was a part in the song where Trey, I guess the mic was open and it was on record, and Trey just kind of whispered at me like, say something, go, say something. And my friend Mark Daubert was there. And so I just looked at him and said, Rai Rocco, Marco Escondolas. I don't know, been you to have any spleef, man. And that made it into the final version of the song. So then Trey, probably as punishment or reward, had me on stage and singing that multiple times.
Yes, I've caught that, and I caught the Buffalo Bill.
Yeah.
How does it feel? Like, are you nervous when you go out there, or is it just like going out with friends?
Not for Antelope, because I know that's going to be over like that. But things that I had to prepare for, like Shine by Collective Soul on New Year's '95. Right. And I don't know, I think I've told this in my podcast, but you might not know. I was standing down there in the pit, right where the stairway where the band goes up onto the stage. And I was standing there ready to go on, and I kind of didn't know when my cue was going to happen. I was looking around for anyone to kind of help me. I probably looked clueless, and I was also probably shaking. I was very nervous. And one of the roadies, they started like kind of gathering around me in a circle, and they were making fun of me and saying stuff. And I was trying to ignore them. And one of them came up to me and handed me like 100-pound coil of wire, of cable. And he said, give this to Trey when you get up there. And I thought he was serious, because I wasn't thinking clearly, and I grabbed it and held on to it, and they were all laughing, cracking up at me, and then he finally walked up to me and goes, "Give me that," and then I realized he was joking, and then Trey called me up, then I'm up and sang "Shine," and the second I started singing, the nervousness went away, but right up until the instant.
Yeah, well, the garden is a little bit, foreboding.
New Year's Eve, the center of the universe.
It's middle of the Harpua too, right?
What's that?
Middle of the Harpua.
Harpua, yeah.
Yeah. What do you not written? But what is your favorite show? Whether you wrote it, favorite song to hear live, whether you wrote it or not.
Yes, it is, and it also have to add the additional caveat. It has to be outdoors, but it's Punch You in the Eye.
Because of the way the place explodes?
Just because how amazing it is. I call it the song with like 4 beginnings. It's got different, it's incredible. And when they first started, the energy in the room, yes.
Unbelievable. This year at Providence Night 2 was one of my favorite shows of the year this year. And that place exploded when they dropped into the Punch. And I was just like, I looked around, I'm just like, wow. You feel the energy. It's just like great. So did you write the lyrics of that one?
Nope, that's just Trey. But there's some shows that are amazing, not just because the music, like they happen to play a really great show, but also it's like the people and the circumstances. And 6:30, 2019, Camden. I don't know if that show went down in the Phish archives as a particularly amazing show. However, I had such an amazing show because I was with my daughter, and I had talked to Trey and requested Buried Alive. And they had an amazing sound check where they did Three Little Birds, Pebbles and Marbles, Tila, Colonel Forbin. So I thought we were going to get a Gamehenge, Famous Mockingbird, and a Driver and Sleep. So those are 2 of mine that they rarely play as well. So I was like really excited going in. They opened with The Curtain, and my daughter and I love The Curtain, and it's an amazing opener. And soon after came Buried Alive, then Camel Walk, Reba, which we love, and then I think Sample, then Pebbles and Marbles. And that's my song I wrote for her. So we got through that first set and we were just ecstatic. Second set, even better. It was incredible. They did Maki Supa, Chalk Dust, Tweezer. And then the encore, Punch You in the Eye.
It was a great show. That's 6:30.
Yep,
Yeah.
6:30, 2019. I wish they were playing in Camden, 6:30, 2020.
Well, that would have been Atlantic City, which
good point.
I like the beach a little bit better than Camden. Camden's kind of like a dump. That venue's just like old and decrepit, and I don't like it anymore. I don't like the access to the end. I mean, you go in a different way than everybody else. So you have a different experience at a Phish show than a normal guy walking through. So it's not my favorite. I was really looking forward to the shows on the beach in Atlantic City because for me, that's been the perfect thing. But I also know what that crowd's like in Atlantic City on the beach too. So that was kind of scary too, because it's not just the Phish heads,
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, Baderfield, Atlantic City stuff came off so well. So I was excited for another venue there.
It's nice in the summer to be able to go to the beach during the day and hang out and be at a resort. I love, traveling. Mexico this year was something else, right?
Phenomenal. Yes.
I mean, the weather, the beach, the band, just everybody jiving together. The band has created so many amazing experiences for the fans over the years. It's just absolutely mind-boggling. Yeah. And you're as big a Phish head as anyone else.
I'm out there in the audience. Yeah, there's no backstage anymore. So
that's right.
If you see Phish, you're out there in the audience.
Well, that's where all the fun is. Backstage is just a bunch of people working and not. There's no vibe really. The garden has a little vibe.
It's daycare. It's daycare back there now.
Yeah, because of the kid. It's family time, it's reflected in the music too. A lot of people talk about the new Phish songs being dad rock. Does that insult you when you hear that? Or do you never hear that?
I might hear it and I'm not insulted. It's like,
you're not insulted? Well, you're a dad. I mean,
I'm a dad, and if you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, don't listen. I don't know.
Well, I mean, naturally, we're all going to mature and grow older, hopefully. And the beautiful thing is that the band is still playing. They're playing probably some of the best music in their modern era, in this 3.0 era, is coming out now. Some of the stuff I heard on Mexico on the beach was just phenomenal. I mean, I was blown away. That was some of my favorite shows of 2020.
Which one?
The Mexico. Well, they're the only shows in 2020.
Oh yeah. Good point. Oh yeah, we have seen Phish in 2020. I was thinking that little like moment after New Year's, we saw Phish technically in 2020. But you're right, Mexico.
What's your pandemic life like? You're at the house with the family all day, the kids in school, doing the Zoom and everything like that?
So I think you might have younger kids than I do. Mine are 23 and 26.
Okay.
But they are here, and one works remotely in New York City, and one is finishing grad school. Well, first year grad school at Rutgers. So they're busy all day.
And you're just working on the different podcasts and different energy and getting different people involved, like me.
Exactly. Yeah. Tomorrow we're going to find another Kravitz.
That's I hope so. We're a dime a dozen. I definitely did not break the mold. My friend Greg Rubin wants to know what your process is. What do you do? Do you sit down and be like, I'm going to write a song now? Or are you just like in the middle of something and something just comes to you and you're like, oh shit.
It's more that. So I write a lot of lyrics. And so for the lyrics to become a song, that's a process in itself. But the lyrics themselves, it has to do with, it's often when I'm like communicating with my friend Scott, because we bounce ideas off each other. Sometimes it'll be like a reply. If Scott has sent me something, I'll reply to him, and boom, before you know it, we have a song. But the ones that I start by myself tend to be ones that something that I've read or that's resonated with me, and I sort of morph the idea, or something in science happens. Like I'm fascinated with the cosmos, and something happens, a comet comes by or something wacky, and I'll sort of figure out a way to, use it as a metaphor for a relationship or something here on Earth.
Okay. Steve Bartocci asking, where is Epitaph?
Hey, Steve. Thanks for asking. I have that same question. So we have, and I may have played it for you, Steve, we have a very, very good, almost final version of Epitaph that Trey and I recorded painstakingly. It's a multi-part song, and I think it's better than Steam and Thread. Trey and the band, I don't think thought so when they got it. They did record it for this album. So they actually had Steam, Thread, Epitaph recorded and in the studio, and somehow Epitaph got left off, to my chagrin, my great disappointment. However, because that would have been cool if we had the trilogy on the album. But it's also fine because now, they can unveil that in some other way. It's a great, great song. So right now it just exists as a demo that Tom and Trey have on their phones that no one else can hear.
So do you find it hard to go back? Because like a lot of the old Phish songs.
1 second.
Okay. Here we go. Dun, 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 dun. Tom Marshall's our guest here at 420 Live. Oh, yes. A little hot.
I was overheating.
Yeah, that's why I had to take the sweater off. This is a workout, Tom.
Yeah, I think that something happened. I think someone turned something on for some reason in my house. All of a sudden it's really warm. So what was the question? Sorry.
I don't remember.
All right. Well, let's go on to something else.
It's 420 Live.
That's like we just fell into the black hole.
Here you go. Why is About to Run the best song?
Oh, the best song of the Ghost stuff.
I guess that's what Dan is saying there in his way.
I 100% agree. I was sitting next to Ernie Sr., Trey's dad, and I said when that song came on, and it had that really cool graphic where Trey, LED rainbow Trey, was going back and forth behind the band. Mm-hmm. And I said, this song, I don't care if any of them don't make the bridge to Phish, but this one has to. And Ernie said, I was just going to say that to you. This is by far head and shoulders the best of the batch. And I love it. And I don't know why it is. It just is.
Can you, like when I see that song live, it never goes past about 6 or 7 minutes. And the same thing with Say It To Me, Santos. They stay in some songs stay in the 6 or 7 minute zone and don't make it into these jam vehicles, and other songs make it into jam vehicles. is that there's got to be no science behind that. It's just got to be how the guys are feeling at a particular time, right?
Yeah. I can't. Yeah, I only write the lyrics.
You write the songs that make the young girls cry.
Honestly, the stuff that Phish does on stage and the science of their jamming and the set list construction and stuff is as much a mystery to me as to every Phish fan. And it's a glorious mystery. And yet, I mean, I'm glad they're making those decisions and not me, because I have no idea how they do it. No idea how they do it.
You get to get taken along for the ride.
Exactly. And I love riding.
All right. Would you ever write a book of short stories?
I would write a book.
Have you tried to write a book?
Yeah, I'm trying right now. Suffice it to say, it's been mentioned a few times, even in this podcast. I'm trying to get like my thoughts around Steam, the whole story down.
Well, no, Steam didn't start off as a trilogy. It just started off one-off.
No, so right. It was
that was my question, is about writing songs nowadays as the whimsical stuff the Phish used to write in the old days. There's so many whimsical, nonsensical things, and now things seem to have more of a direction, even more of a direction. I mean, like Possum, and this stuff was so just a song to be a song back in those days, because it was cool and fun and different, and it sounded cool. Where now everything has such meaning and deepness to it, which I attribute to the guys growing older and aging and their lives having more meaning too.
I think it's also that quality control thing that I was talking about. I think, we're dealing with songs that a lot of people are going to hear. So I think it's worth it taking a little extra time before it goes out into the world to massage them a little bit and make them as good as possible. I think we owe it to people. There was a time when Trey and I, the only reason we wrote songs was to make the other guy laugh. And I think that humor has stayed with Phish. And I think that humor is why people like Phish. It's a different band than other bands. And so I don't ever want to squash that humor. And the good news is we laugh the whole time we're writing songs, even if it's a serious song. So the humor's still there. And I don't want to sand all the rough edges away, you know what I mean? Otherwise, because then it wouldn't really be Phish anymore.
No, of course not. And the thing I liked the best was the sense of humor. I would love when you would just go out and be like 2 shows, heads down, jamming, and the next night vacuum cleaner solo, Trey joking in between every song. I mean, but they definitely made, I think, a conscious thought, at least in '97, to kind of put their heads down and just get into it and try. What was their conscious effort? Not to be as comical on stage, or to try to be more.
Maybe we're dads. Maybe it just is that simple.
We're the dads. We are the dads. Is it still Lawn Boy? Julie Posner asks.
Hey, Julie. No. Lawn Boy finally ended.
It ended right before the pandemic.
The pandemic finally ended Lawn Boy. It's sad.
Oh, boy. Well, Tom, I am honored. Oh, wait, one last question. When is the next Under the Scales? And how do you figure out when you're going to do your next one?
When someone says yes, when I ask them if they're going to, if I can interview them. And I'm happy to say that Billy Strings said yes. So he's next. He's on the chopping block.
Hell of a talent. Well, Tom Marshall, I am proud to be a part of Osiris Media Network, and to have you as my executive producer. Thank you for volunteering into the job, and I look forward to entertaining people with you and with Osiris for many, many months and years to come. We are just beyond thrilled that you chose Osiris. Jeff, and the team that's going to support you is Nick Sejas, Christina Collins, RJB, Kristen Cluthy, Adam Kaplan, Matt Dwyer, and Mark Dowd. And we're excited to have you. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the warm welcome. Tom, it wasn't that bad, was it? It was okay. I would do this again. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear it. See, I'm fishing. I caught one. I caught a Marshall. You didn't even ask me about Robert Hunter, which was something that you and I clashed about on Twitter once. Yeah. Well, I had a whole list of questions here. Like I told you, you wanted me to so many questions. I have no idea if we're going to get to any of these. And we've got to some and, others next time. Part 2. I'm ready for part 2. Thank you so much, Jeff. All right. Thanks, Tom. Have a great one.
All right, you too. See ya.
Right. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Bringing you top quality entertainment during this pandemic, in my pandemic pivot here on 420 Live. I've been your host, Jeff Kravitz. It's been my pleasure to come to you. Tomorrow we have Portugal the Man, another one of my favorite bands. A lot of my favorite bands begin with P. And on Friday we have Jerry Harris from the Talking Heads. Talking Heads does not begin with P. But I've also asked Primus, and I've also asked, I don't know. I can't think of another name because of P off the top of my head. But we try to bring you the top quality entertainment you can't get anywhere else right here. I want to thank you all for tuning in. It was a great show tonight. I'm proud to be here. I'm proud to be anywhere. It's fun to be able to just get out of the house and be able to talk to you guys and take you down this path. I want to thank everybody. Amazing. Thanks for the questions today. You know, I appreciate everybody tuning in and chirping up and spreading the love. Thank you guys. Please take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Tune in tomorrow, 420. We're going to do it all again with Portugal the Man. Those guys, there's some serious subject matter there to talk about. They're not joking around. And, you know, I have lots of great requests out. Next week is going to be another fantastic week, and we're just going to keep this rolling where it's like a snowball going downhill. We're going to build up the momentum. So have a great day. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other's. Hydrate. Medicate. Keep yourselves fed. Stay off the sugar, unless it's ice cream, because I love ice cream. Have a great day. Here's the hug. Boom. Peace, love, happiness for all you guys out there. Have a great day. We will see you tomorrow, Thursday.